you guys playing Mario Party?
No, we were playing Mario Party 2.
Hey, well, we all mourn in different ways.
Okay, is it finally time to get this over with?
Oh, cut the attitude. This guy's been waiting his whole life for his funeral, and all I've been doing is bitch about it.
Yeah, he waited a while for his funeral. Held out for the right deal.
And that's a good thing you waited too. Funerals are out of season.
I just don't think death should be celebrated, you know? Like, ever since I was a kid, my parents told me, don't do that. Die? They were so strict.
Come on, you're a grown man now. You can die whenever you want.
I get death can be intimidating, but nobody likes a stick in the mud at the funeral.
Don't you chaperone school dances?
Yeah, I thought you liked people being sticks in the mud.
At school dances. Funerals are my time to shine. I love being the life of the party and being the center of attention.
Yeah, well, funerals are where I do business.
Yeah, well, funerals are where I'm starting to do business. All right, I think it's time. You guys ready to go to this funeral?
Let's f***ing do this!
Remember, guys, we gotta make good impressions. Big smiles.
Hey, didn't know you guys would make it.
We had to make it. Your brother didn't.
How's he holding up in there?
Dead.
Thank God.
Are we the first ones to arrive?
Oh yeah, with that funeral across the street, competition's been pretty fierce.
But it's off season.
Hey, more people are planning funerals around this time. Plan it during the droughts.
Well, regardless, this funeral's a long time coming. My family comes from a long line of funeral planners. Plus, it gave me an excuse to come out of the house and get that corpse out of my hair.
Should we make our way in? That carcass isn't gonna mourn itself.
Yeah, hurry up, it's starting to get cold.
Nice setup. Is he really dead?
I'd be insulted if he wasn't.
You just saved yourself a bad review.
Hey, where are the vendor booths?
Oh, we got bought up by our sponsor. Ever since the deceased was born, Frito-Lay called dibs on his first major life event. It was a roll the dice, but it counts.
Oh, no, no, no. These events are vital to my business. I've been waiting for this for years.
Well, so did Frito-Lay. Ruffle?
Anyone just feel a negative energy with this place?
No.
What are you worried about? Afraid when the time comes for you, you get stuck with Motorola?
It's not that. I'm just afraid of dying, you know?
I'm afraid of you being a little bitch, okay? What's there to be afraid about dying? I, for one, cannot wait.
Never knew you were such a big death junkie.
Oh, big time. It's the exact opposite of sex, my mortal enemy.
I will not stand for big corporations taking advantage of the dead. Give the startups a chance for once.
That's it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna face my fears. I'm gonna walk straight up to that dead guy, look him in the eyes, and tell him off.
Well, that's what I'm supposed to be in here.
Is it finally time?
Yeah, dead body, good funeral weather. It's the perfect storm.
And another thing, you just sit there, lifeless. He is getting so much attention.
The corpse?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be the life of the party. What does he have that I don't?
Kill me.
You go without me. I need to rethink some things now that I know this funeral isn't about me.
Hey, come on, you know what they always say. You can't misspell funeral without you and I.
How do you do it? How?
Halloween. It's my favorite time of
I
year.
gotta hand it to him.
Wednesday?
No,
He
8
died.
PM.
Thanks for decorating with me. You never hear
regardless,
of a
I
therapist
thought I should
going
give you
to
my
help their
review of the
patient.
funeral before I post it.
Oh, shoot, I'm always out to improve things for
Wait,
next
since
time.
you're already here. Well, firstly,
Guess
this
who's
isn't
your
even the first time
secret
he's died, so the hype's just not real.
Well, how can I make it up for you?
Please
Discount
guess I
for
put
next
money on your
No,
answer.
I have a membership
Well, if I
card.
guess
I'm fine.
right, it wouldn't
Next,
be a
this
secret.
place is so unsanitary.
Well, I don't know any
There's
names.
a dead
I
body
know you.
right there.
Well, he was your secret Santa.
Well,
Good, I don't need my toes
good for
anyway.
you.
No, I've given you more
Yeah, same. I don't get why he's so popular here.
Willie is more relatable.
Oh, how did my secret say?
Well, when you asked for water when you came in, I
I
knew
suggest going to his brother, trying to win him over. Maybe you can be the subject of
Don't patent that reaction with because I'm gonna create a scene of the night. I've been trying to figure out who got me
I'm sleepy.
See, when we were passing my hat around, John put his name for Secret Santa. I recorded everybody's facial expression. Jeff's eye twitches, and his eye only twitches when he sees the letter B, which eliminates me and everybody else.
Why do you want to know so bad? I already got my present. I don't even know who got me.
Well, I'm planning this to be the best Christmas ever.
We'll make a new Jesus.
A better Jesus.
A Jesus for the common man.
That and I want everything to be exactly what the one Christmas
You know, he was my secret Santa. Well, you got an intervention.
Oh, yeah, but I've been thinking through a lot lately. Like, just yesterday, I was thinking about well, my evening opened up. What am I gonna do now? I can't go.
Hey, y'all.
by the rest of this party, then I'll change it. Can they spell? Are these guys? What do you want me to do? Oh my God, I'm not even that or anything. It's just a game. What is shooting? I'm dead. Maybe it's a word content. Yikes, nice. We have all the games already. Son of a bitch! Damn it! The last thing I do. And this character runs away. There's so many stupid ass huge chase all the time. Stop! It's not. You son of a bitch! Fine! Why is this guy so fair one? This guy, alright? Done. Was then the enemy is Seven minutes. As per usual. Just up there. Right up here. Right here. Quick, doesn't it? Hockey mask, guys. It's big. Start wiggling out. It's the same over and over. You just keep running up, and then we pop out, and they just keep coming. 7 hours into the game, and 40 minutes deep into just this segment of running up to the church, and I gotta be honest, I'm starting to not like this game. But I've got the hard. Double shirt, holy happy. Yes. You mother Vulcan madman. This is a big yesterday. What is your problem? This is cool. That's not all.
And then Sony took that over a few years later.
That's the point. That money.
You are that major
I have lumberjack communication. So clean. So many people. What the? Being titled Disney Infinity. All that time. I'm sick of the dark After all, this is fight. Don't damn it, I have this kind of games here. Now I just more about fragging. Words back! Hell yes! Best in the Look at this! That's considered the pinnacle of It doesn't Another star! Why is he here? Come on! What a hell of a way for me! Stop! Everybody had it because jump for the left. Of course your mom likes to This is except me, apparently. Let me get back to the Tyrell guy. So I don't know. Get the bike. Boy, I can't wait to see what the bike is going to be like. Which is obscene. Blow it up and bring it to the stuff to play here. Just Skyline. Dumbass thing when you're driving when you get shot. Dead! And then we just have to going gun down in 126 and think this is definitive. Really bad! Because by the time 6 came out, you were all Mario Party. That's a you potential answer. Read that again. I'd be stupid not to. Good Mario Party. Dad got like red. Not the best in 3 years. Before you see what it is. This is what they're gonna do. Sign up for this. Don't ship this happening. That works. Why not? Our final section of the day. Too well. Entirely new direction. Wow. Really? Beating the shit out of me, alright? They're kicking my ass! Even stole my shit! No, that's what they go on with the cross! How did I know so much help from that? Get done! What a big place. I thought I would be dying. I didn't sign up for this. All of them Marvel based. No Disney related. Only 11 with 2B from Big Hero 6. What's a Marvel game? It's so horrible. The mere act of it existing shocks me. I played this game for 50 hours and I have the original. This game is a box game. My problem is I feel like I'm a confused. I go. Hey, get me there! God's sake! Those games, I forget about this. Well,
Like, these are jobs.
No, man. This is a weak seat.
Excuse me, I am too, and you show no concern.
This is Marvel Concept, which allows you to play a certain Marvel
You're
game.
gonna be the superstar!
I kind of get one of these Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's tough. They do want to spend time with friends. They do want to the fact that they did make this amazing, but that's all. The premise of this game is that they're a bunch of toys. I kind of understand not having an adult playable in the Avengers.
I was supposed to win!
Spider-Man in the Avengers. The only game you can play is Iron Man and the Superman playset. These are stupid. I'm sorry. The storyline here is that these are a bunch of toys. So why does it matter how old you can talk about nostalgia? I don't understand this. I didn't just slip and look what happened. No, I chose this lifestyle. There was a part of why once you're in this game, it's only hard for me to time
There we go, I got a good understand. I'm supposed to own the podcast.
This right here, this is right at the 1.1 here, so you can choose how to replace Sonic Unleashed. I saw one trailer online, and my jaw finished. It's incredible. The speed has missed out on being over here. It was good. The trailer got to but it's jumping in that was my funny. Once I opened it that Christmas, I immediately popped it into play, and you know what? All the Jurassic Plains there. Then the gimmick of this game showed its ugly face. Even the Werehog. Werehog says now it's still a Werehog. Sega transformed this concept of Sonic turning into a bad bitch in the 90s. More people like this was never what got me started. You have to have a game look like this and think that's not good enough. It's all because they couldn't make an entire game's worth of HD. I mean, these animations like out of this great through. It would be too expensive. Don't have beat 'em up sections where you have a single player. Regardless of the stages of Sonic Unleashed, I was bored, but yeah, after a few Werehog nighttime kids gain 20%. Outside of that, shame because this is like more interesting personally. I think the traps are good. So damn excited to play this on Christmas morning. Well, I liked it. I do remember you know what I got right alongside Sonic Unleashed? Lego Batman the video game. With this outside of the game has a Lego Batman. Later on, I just happen to be adult. Just on a break. 3 games for Christmas ain't a bad deal. Another quality Skyline 9. I had one of my most God damn Nintendo. You know exactly what toy beggars unwrapping their parents. When you go to see your extended family, that's when you have to go in with expectations. I guess expensive game, $50, probably a good reason to respect every uncle. I just straight up didn't ask for it. There was still that Lo and behold, my cousin's boyfriend bought me a new Super Mario Brothers Wii. Holy shit. That was the best video game for that holiday season. Price one at that. I got it for Christmas. I think this is all because of relatives. I must have had some acceptable facts. And with my fake ID, I still am. Sadly, being an only child means the main gimmick of these shows maybe ready to go to a future multiplayer. I like it inaccessible for me. While playing it as a typical Mario game, I still have a good time with it. Nintendo's about that. Same thing with Russian ideas that from this game. They can make a people looking back at old family photos. Enhance. That's anything that comes right behind you. 2005. My gift, a Game Boy Advance copy of Road Rage. It has a crazy taxi clone. It was quality, especially for a GBA game. I found it so incredibly impressive to capitalize around that 3D space on a Game Boy Advance. Because the Amiibos never really related with taxi measures to party the other Sunday drive mode is the best use for me. But even then, it wasn't very simple to road rage. Train a CPU fighter and a Game Boy Advance. 2003 was the year I got a Game Boy Advance SP. Now, to be fair, I had a normal Game Boy Advance prior. For those that did prior, I hope to like Nintendo made it very clear they said, you know, I'm me. The very next year, I got the SP model. I didn't want to lock the content behind them like Skylanders or carrying case. This was my magnum opus, owning a Game Boy Advance fans as is
Never charge money for downloading
Debo did go on for the first time ever. Big mad as a child that he games like fast forwarding to 2011. That was the year I felt Jesse upgraded to Xbox 360. Nintendo never found a charm. There's that Mario stuff. It always went during Black Friday. Either it just gave you like 4 coins, and you can tell this was at the point where games with Megas and it was more so pointing and saying that that's still made for a great Christmas. It's a game that came as part of this whole shtick. I got connected back to my side on these here. Believe me, I've already talked about Amiibo, and I thought it was bitch, I'll do it again. But Amiibo guns really all that on my knowledge. This is a pretty fun holiday. It's stuff I wanted. Especially you start too. Adored this concept. The problem was nobody in my family could play along with this. I tried to set it up for some gatherings, and nobody wanted to play ball. You never had that? Where you have a dumb little product, you want everyone to go to some gathering, or nobody wants to look like a jackass or an amusement. Yeah, it pisses me off after the boom of Betty. I got a tower and a chair in 2009. You forgot about that. Gamer, pretty much. Figured that all out. It was popular as that back then. Out of all the products to have done this to enough where they were willing to crossbreeding, right into this. This one's gimmick was racing. Alongside new Skylanders, you could buy vehicle returns. Expand into the game just like any other Skylander village. The game itself is at the same time. Star, Mushroom, Mega Mushroom, an entirely separate launch. This is battle with hell. No kid is going, Dad, I want to be that when I grow up. This game itself is crazy. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I haven't heard of anyone. It sounds like
He's big. Okay.
it is gonna walk right over all the level design and not play it. Spoils to figure out what they can do next. Use the Mega Mushroom gives like an agenda to some my smart areas rather than something to it really makes sense. Wow, someone like that. Color boxes like force and trap areas of that.
You guys, this was the best Christmas ever. This game is to put who's in care. I don't need to rank them because the cars are just together. Cars here can't miss the best. It's pretty cool. You don't actually run so much. That's not even. How did they do this?
But this is literally like the same technology. This Skylander is in this car. Whatever, not the same guy. But of course, the Nintendo versions of this game feature exclusive the game like turbocharged points of this. Anybody have Nintendo characters talking about around the dark style.
Damn, man! Stop using your throw!
And I ate it already. It's over. I guess we'll never truly see eye to eye. Or anything.
Double anything!
Not have sex.
Go eat a bush!
You guys are all tossing off the short spikes and
There's a big blue border that's gonna eat
everything all previous figures and gimmicks perk on the next one. After that, you can still all figures between consoles. Nope, these can only be used on Nintendo. This is enough to get a fight. Capcom was the pack in for the Wii U players. Give us the end with the Wii and 3. Yes, the standard gameplay down. The gamepad support is racing points, and it's no adventure. Skylanders, Superchargers, racing. And after seeing how Strap Team on Wii turns out, I salute them for accepting the fact that Wii can't do the game also pretty much tells you when a secret plot is this is just everybody can definitely take point. All of this thinking it's not simple and it's just instead jump off. There's other boss of racing portions here. You can just find Mario Kart 8 and Super Mario 64 and you can get a solid medal. One out of the most and stop significantly. This game is also barely matters because at the end of the day, pom-pom is a toy. Bosses are anything you write home about. Oh boy! I can't wait! The bomb fact was the biggest tier for Toys to Life series. I don't have 30 copies of it. Is Bowser's Castle. I'm standing here because as a newspaper 7, math is safe outside. At the end of the boss, Disney entering the Toys to Life series was expected. Fake out! Everybody had the idea of like then escaping why, but it's next. I really like how the Resident Evil does so much as so when Lego Dimensions was announced and all the various the world just went, yeah, no shit. But the way they were doing part of the whole game, looks awesome. Warner Brothers was going all over the place. So stop putting it was getting around the battle out there like Simpsons, like the Cats Circle 2, making them universes in this game. All about giant battle. These are like my favorite Lego games. Cars against using the killer series to create multiple series together stage countless franchises. Don't make it every day. You know what this means? Lord of the Rings, Lego being Harry Potter, Ghostbusters blocks, Adventure Time, Scooby-Doo, Gremlins, Sonic the Hedgehog, the music, the game, this is exactly one of each Lego best Mario soundtrack or Lego Batman gaming into that big bad style with different brands. Honestly, what I wanted Disney Infinity to be, but even after considering the diversity of franchises they have under their belt, how did they get up? Lego set half-down video game, throwback to Factory Land, Batman second stage, Wild Style, Batman Beer, Portal Fix, all needing to be put together. This is one of the best parts of Lego as well. As Power Up is also available some of that. Lucky Bell, Super Bell that uses the basic characters objects in Disney's Town, that's what the Portal reads. Without them, these are just regular everyday Lego. Cool. Top of this, traveling with the final boss though. Good. So you can very easily just toss in the bag and bring them to the friend's house. Lego Dimensions here after one stop and toast. So instructions are given with the starter pack. Classic separate polarized game with them. You always have to go in game to figure out how to build them. These extra packs are just genuine Lego. Like a chance to sell them to Lego Dimensions owners, or just teaching them what the minifigures. But you're couldn't include instructions. So these you guys include instructions for, and you have to include the game. But these included with the game have paper instructions as well as in-game instructions. Like, what? I include paper instructions for the ones that come with the game, and the ones that don't come with the game. Do today! It would also be nice to have paper instructions just so you could display everything right before you start the game up. Ready and turn the game on. It's been updated and I can't mount popping all the bases on the portal, find play the game. That's I'm being an idiot. Characters, so they only have 100%. Also, every stage is literally starter pack characters. Even is Tail, and it's clear every level is one character. It's like Wild Style is Wario. It's gotta be Castle, but I'm just like, why can't I just do that as any character and control? Isn't that cool to be like, oh, Wild Style control this object? I know how to tell it a bird. This is awesome. But that, I can tolerate. What I can't is the fact that the figures around on the portal. Anybody that knows me will tell you, never tell Scott to move Legos around on his one portal. I absolutely hate the box. But one of your characters might be already we can't give and there's this color matching game that I just couldn't get to work properly. In fact, it's not true. I feel like I'm traveling through the world dimensions by two characters. That part of the base, it forces you to be nuanced to work when you're playing and when it's wired. There's only so many TV setups this works for. People themselves weren't interesting at all to me. I'm sorry, I really don't. What the hell was this? Much like so it counts as a neither can this one. For some reason, this one works, so now I have to move these speakers around. Everything from the game design to the real life design and making something so simple, so needlessly complex. It's like they felt that music differentiates it from regular Lego games. It's not games that just go down to the frustrate rather than just tired shouting songs. Watch the portal demise and my underwear before prepare yourself, because this is war. There's not much time before we Congress. Lego Dimensions feels like a shell of a regular Lego. The more expensive and has feelings attached that don't work. I'm playing the Wii U version. You can't play that version. It's the buggiest edition of the game. We should take the PS4 version. I just don't think I like this game. It's a shame because the concept was one of the most justified twist-led experience yet. All the IPs they have covered here, it's one of the craziest crossovers I've ever seen. The characters even have specific dialogue towards one another when you put them together, and on top of that, most of the characters are fully voiced by their original actors. Barely any sound-alikes are used, unlike Disney Infinity. You have level packs containing a character, object, vehicles, like a bonus level in that character's world. Plus, the vehicle can be reworked on 3 different ways, which is pretty awesome. Fun packs don't have any levels, just characters and objects. Story packs have
handfuls of levels based on movies you can play, regular Lego games based on inside fees. Instead of making sequels, nothing! They opted to just continually update Lego Dimensions instead. This game's got a Mario, it's on figures and no figures. It's nice, but it does take away a lot of it for me personally. When I put the Sonic figure on the base and have to go into the download content manager to download the Sonic level, that takes away so much of the joy and magic of the Toys to Life concept. These figures are, quite literally, keys to unlock content in the game. That's how it's always been, but they're not even trying to hide it with this game. It doesn't feel like you're bringing these characters to life, which I think is the big selling point of a game like this for kids. Couple that with how the starter pack was $100 and something like a level pack was $30. That's screwed up. I know Lego itself is expensive, but you do get a fun experience out of that putting it all together. When you translate this over to video games, Lego Dimensions gives you 3 characters in a game that's just as long as any of the other standalone Lego games, which can give you hundreds of playable characters and level design not focus on shoehorned portal gimmicks for 60 or less. The Sonic level pack is worth half of a complete Lego game. You do get Lego with it, but still, it's just not worth it. There was one major Lego IP that didn't make the cut in Dimensions because it was not a full feature review for Disney Infinity 3.0. That's a weird way to spell fucking goofy. Yeah, 2015 was when Star Wars was coming back hard with The Force Awakens. And the other big acquisition Disney made around that time, it just made sense with Infinity 2.0 being themed around Marvel. But while 2.0 was great, in my opinion, 3.0 another partner show 30th anniversary really starting to come. It's the exact same format as before, playsets and toy box, but they went for a far bigger variety this time around. I don't understand playsets were not only Star Wars, but also Disney originals as well. They started to dig deeper and offer more classic Disney characters, like Baloo and Vanilla Mickey Mouse. It took 3 damn games to get Mickey. The playset's mostly focused on Star Wars, but there was actually a popular spider playset. There's a couple of Disney games, but again, Finding Dory. There's even some Redbox games that were way more fleshed out than the ones from 2.0. Speedway, a racing game where you can play as any Disney Infinity character you want. Years ago, everything just feels way more polished than before. The toy box, I gotta be honest, being able to play as any Disney Infinity character from 1 to 2 to 3 makes it so much more fun. I'm kicking Iron Man's ass as Baloo. He can run around as Donald fucking Duck versus a Star Wars character, add on some flying vehicles and weapons. Disney Infinity 3.0 ain't that bad. I think they put a ton of effort into this iteration and keep it their all. You still can't use previous playsets from older games. They added a new character that stands for me, but 3.0 was set to be a long-lasting game. Instead of developing a 4.0 the next year, Disney opted to release updates for 3.0. You can tell who your figures are by the internet sample on the package and getting that blue is not right. They had lots of plans for this game. Double Team Bright. Guess where I'm going with this? Cheat code. 316. If anything, the seemed out of nowhere. Just 8 months after 3.0 released, Disney announced their discontinuation of the Disney Infinity brand. It was shocking because they really just released figures and playsets along with announcing copyrighted content. Disney Infinity was not going to be a decent success, but they're enough to have 6 developers on the project later on figures to replace with this game alone. Infinity was ambitious, but not sustainable. Disney wanted it to be a platform, something to get games based on Disney properties, but that makes sense. There are over 100 million PS4 owners. If they're making an inside-out game, why limit it to an install base of only those who bought the game with Anakin Skywalker? Why limit it to the confines of the Disney Infinity engine and playstyle? Why lock it behind toys when if you just want to sell toys, just sell toys, and if you want to sell games, just sell games? It felt like Disney Infinity wasn't developed as a Toys to Life game at first, but then they forced it into it. But with a game like Skylanders, that felt more genuine. Sure, they were still trying to sell you this junk for you, just at least with 3.0, Disney started to package the power discs and regular packaging. And now we're looking menus! The starter pack initially sold for only $64.99. Not that bad. Actually went in and we're still only getting one small portion of the game and only 2 characters in one playset, but Disney not only everybody will be fine, but also installing Disney Interactive in the box. There was loads of other years of playsets in development that just proved pretty starting then. Disney decided to just license out their properties to different developers and publishers. We got cartridges games just 20 years later.
Things must die for some to live. It's a bit of a bummer considering
Much like no heavy
Wyoming's
potential, it seems like
during gameplay
finally going to start to
ramp
ramp up. Plus, there were plans for a 4.0, which would lead in addition to more as all crossover, featuring a campaign of sorts with all the characters. However, it was either that or Cartoon Journey when they chose what they chose. The company saw that Toys to Life could lead to success until playing for was a declining market. 2015 had three major competitors doing very similar things on top of Amiibo. Customers were justifiably finding that buying these games every year was too expensive, not worth it. Their living rooms were clogged. These games were fundamentally replacements for traditional licensed kids games.
compared to what I'm
If you
used
want to get your kid a game based on a movie they liked, or just a child-friendly game in general, in 2015, there wasn't a ton of options if you worked on a Nintendo platform that supported Toys to Life. So, Disney backed out, like Dimensions and Skylanders. Dimensions continued to release new level story and fun packs alongside content updates for the original game, while Skylanders stuck to their usual speed. In 2016, we got Skylanders Unmastered. It's much harder to. Kind of similar story to Superchargers. Fun game. Skylanders is faster than the fastest character you save it to them, and now this is a Skylander. You can bring it over to a friend's house. We got some new moves. It's really neat, but it's like Superchargers. This isn't really a, oh, how are you doing that? The fun of Skylanders is having characters on figure. It helps you immediately recover after like this figure. It's basically just a memory card at that point. It's not like the craziest thing in the world. And by this point in the game, it was obvious Disney was right. God, no! If you die in the Wii game, that's a peaceful expansion. It's gone as easy. Milk just high budget. Why do you only use Tuffy to get out by putting the toy on the portal and seeing it appear in the game? Once, everybody else had already done it multiple times over at this point.
Skylanders is still the best that made 3 though. Gameplay, but I just have to commend their passion and faith. All the characters, all the gimmicks from previous games work here. You can use the giants, the swap force characters, traps from Traps Team, the vehicles from Superchargers, even Donkey Kong and Bowser still work on the Nintendo version. All of these Skylanders look different from their original appearances. They went in and updated them all with new animations, sometimes models. That is commitment and impressive. The Nintendo Switch version, which came out of the system's launch on March 3rd, 2017, it doesn't come with a portal. They decided to use the NFC on the system, which was something I asked for on the Wii U. It's virginity! They didn't do it. The traps and vehicles aren't compatible. Scanning the figures is far more bitchy than it ever was with the portal. It was way easier to just have the portal, pop the figure on, and leave it there. Now it's riddled with menus and button prompts, and this is the worst version of the game. You can still use the Nintendo characters, but frankly, it seems the Wii U version is definitive, as you can use the characters and the vehicles. Imaginators was the last of the mainline Skylanders games during its initial stick or something like they almost knew that going in. I know they didn't, as there were plans for more Skylanders Imaginators content and even a game following it. But just the fact that the gimmick is, we're giving you the ability to make your own Skylander. Villains throughout the series are now playable via their own figures. Spyro plays a big part in the intro of the game, which kind of feels like we're coming full circle. They made a Crash Bandicoot figure and level, which is a really cute form of fan service. The figures themselves are huge. They were pretty expensive this time around. They made them super high quality. These levels were already pretty focused on Wii U. But even if it was never meant to be that, the game sold quite poorly. It was obvious the fad was over. They're gonna play the stage and or was it? However, yes, Ubisoft announced plans for their own Toys to Life game at E3 2017. Starlink and Battle for Atlas. The crotches on these guys. After everybody else was obliterated, these guys swung into E3 announcing a spaceship game with toys. Released in 2018 for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, with the Nintendo Switch version coming out with Star Fox contest, meant nobody played it on PS4 and Xbox. You connect your controller to this shell and connect these different ships and weapons that are alongside this little figure of the pilot. So, this does feel a bit magical. Like, it's pretty wicked trying this out for the first time. There's no batteries or wires or anything to snap it on, and everything appears in game. Very impressive. But after that, I'm good. There's really no controls well. It looks good. It's not world. Dog everything. kind of playable since we understand
It's okay, but now we're spending hundreds of dollars. I think Ubisoft knew this considering they sold a digital version of the game that didn't require any of the toys. After a bit, they stopped selling the toys altogether and just supported the game with updates until dropping it altogether. Much like the others, I can tell this is quality. The choice life aspect of the game can enhance the experience to some extent. It's really cool. But after that first time playing it, I don't care to go back to this. It's not a bad game, just not one that I've ever played without a gun to my head. When they started out, you can understand how these games felt really cool, but after nearly 10 years of their existence, they have to do some crazy stuff to warrant their existence. After a while, by the end of the team, choice to life lost its magic, and instead it just felt expensive. The prices of these things don't lie. Nobody wants them to start. In the end, most of these were just a complete waste.
They keep flip-flopping. Better points than you either barely utilize or next they use them all the time. Video supports is pretty much nice. That's just what we want to know what happens. Flavors functionality is gone, meaning you can't make posters all over your display. Velocity's gone. Basically, a little bit of a shame that you value the stamps a bit. But all the difference doesn't matter though, because stamps are fundamentally just screen stars with font art pointing out. But here's the thing, the stamps have been fully colorized now. This isn't something that was expected. They're using the game's photo mode. Environment. It's a smarter purpose of the stamps, and that was colorized them out of nowhere. We want a purpose behind it. This version of 3D is just a I was going to remember the Luigi Brothers. I was trying to help on the cameras this time. Crystal State was far nicer, I know that. The NES game on Wii U, even though New Super Luigi U is on Switch,
Not friends with them, all because you're my cousin.
do you have this online multiplayer?
Things are worthless. Nobody buys them.
You can play local games everybody on their own Switch or play with friends online. It would have been nice if you could play with them at multiplayer mode. Jump this, play this, still would have done a nice addition. Here's Super Mario Brothers U has modes like that. Well, the online works about as well as online multiplayer. It's hit or miss. I'm not one to be that upset. I've never had an edition because the problems with online Nintendo games could obviously be far better, but it does the job. They didn't have to include it. In fact, they did kind of raise some more questions like value and making it better, but it's here, it can work, and I'm going to have to actually work. This release is called Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury after all. It's going to be a separate option on the title screen. This is its own beast. It could be based on 3D World, and playing one has no effect on playing the other. They could have just released this by itself. Bowser's Fury, right off the bat, has a much better tone. Take note of that. Good morning. That stinks. We get a cutscene reminiscent of 3D World's openings out there. So no matter what, step we're here. The sun rises as Mario walks around and sees star. Good morning. Bowser's fucking pissed. He's Lord. I have full camera control. It's my grandma's worst nightmare. And so Bowser's Fury uses Mario's same moveset from 3D World. Still has a run button, same power-ups, with an 8-directional movement. Roll all this work away after a few months. Feels like Mario Odyssey. The camera control was initially set to be heighten the celebration as Nintendo you kind of have to finick with it a bit in the settings. But yeah, I pissed off Bowser, but I grabbed a cat trying to scare him off. Afterwards, we meet up with Bowser Jr., who teams up with me because Bowser's just too pissed. And why is Bowser like this? What happened? Well, you have to go to the game's instruction manual to info on that. The story, it's kind of there, but it's more of an experiment than Mario. Basically, it takes assets from 3D World and it's an open world Super Mario Brothers is selling so damn well, of course I can't make a This is like Lab Cat. It has no Mario Kart things in 3D World we claim to, yet for some reason this entire area is themed around cats. system.
Enemy is now cat
That gives them an
skins
excuse
appear
to go
that'll have
hog
colors
wild for
correlating
a
with
new
playable
one.
characters in 3D world. What does this amount to? Bullshit! I think they might be trying to overcompensate for the lack of connection.
Mario Kart Live Home Circuit.
Like, these games have a few things in common, but at the end of the day, it just shows you can take all these assets from one and make them completely different in another just by recontextualizing them. Plus, it used to be just for slide levels.
a Mario Kart.
Just use as means of transportation from one island to another. Power-ups are all the same, but now you can store them and access them whenever you want.
Not only is it fun to see your house from
your
this
moveset, but power-ups. Bowser's Fury feels like the answer to my lust for what I wanted 3D World to feels like Mario Kart.
Finding
Three different grassy plain stages to make one experience. Bowser's Fury is basically an amalgamation of a dozen 3D World
Definitely
stages
something
laid
I
out
don't need to go back to ever again.
You have to travel to each of
Try
them
it out at
yourself
some
rather
point.
than selected on stage select screen. Cat shines to
Don't
collect,
have a
which
ton
are
of
pretty
living
much
space or
runes from
time.
Odyssey.
Don't have a huge desire to set
power
up
source from Galaxy or 64. Complete a
They
mission,
have a lot
get
of
a cat
big
shine.
shiny.
Each one is similar to something you've seen in Odyssey. Usually get to the end of a platform challenge, or collect a certain amount of things, battle the enemies, etc. Other cat shines you get by just exploring and finding throughout the world. And with the help of Bowser Jr., that becomes easier to accomplish. But that's not really their control. You can decide how often he helps out, or you flat out get rid of him. I opted for a little bit of help from it again because I found that to be the true Bowser's Fury experience. You should pretty much just found some secrets to point out to if you don't buy gyro percent. Pick out random enemies every now and then. It's cool Bowser Jr.'s in this game, and you two have to work together. But pick cutscenes all logs, we are considering there's text that 3D World refuses to have support via text. It just goes to show that these are two separate games. It just so happens Bowser's Fury has the same Mario model, moveset, power-ups, enemies, gimmicks, themes, and included in the same package. What the hell am I playing? There's so much this game takes from Odyssey. I mean, specifically when you get a shine, that's the damn Odyssey animation. The Matt's user interface is similar. Even the way Bowser Jr. asks for Mario's help and evokes vibes from Odyssey is the best. But Odyssey was all about exploration.
On the Wii U version
The
are still a
platform
little
challenger
better
Bowser's Fury is full of 3 Deluxe Mario Galaxy and the cool settings scream sunshine without even talking about how the collectibles are called shines. Bowser's Fury combines every form of 3D Mario and still makes it unique. It's crazy how this is so based on 3D World, but feels almost completely different. And Bowser can be blamed for that, as every so often Bowser's Fury is unleashed. Damn! It just happens while you're playing the game. I'm happy they're here, but you just have to deal with it by collecting a shine that will scare him off, or just waiting things out. Eventually,
I would have
you'll
liked
go back to
online
sleep.
play for the
This
bingo
is such a
battle
fun
mode,
mechanic.
and
It forces you to
reassurance that
stay
Picking
on your
Forest are
toes.
coming.
You don't know when
We can't
Bowser's
have
coming
everything,
back.
but
It
we
could be
can pick the
son of a
360
bitch.
I'd
Fury
still
instills a
fully
certain
recommend this
fear in the
game.
player,
It's
unlike other
wonderful
Mario
and one of my
games.
favorites.
But it
This
does
release
get
could
old
have been
after
better,
a
but I
bit.
still
Sometimes
think
you
it's
just want to complete a
definitive
mission, and
FIFA
all
21
Bowser does
Legacy
is kind of
Edition.
annoy the shit out of you. When you collect a certain amount of cat shines, you can become Giga Cat Mario, which is how you actually fight Fury Bowser, and it's a good time. Isn't that mind-blowing?
Which they did for
Kinda
FIFA
goes along with
22,
the
so
idea
this is
that
not only a
you
reskin
love
of FIFA
big,
20, it's a
you do that a
reskin
few
of a
times,
reskin.
keep
Big
collecting
month
cat
for news,
shines. I
though.
will
A
say,
Smash
at some
Brothers character
points,
was
Bowser's
revealed,
Fury
this one
becomes
being
kind of
Steve
repetitive
from
and
Minecraft.
monotonous.
It
Since there's
just
multiple
makes sense.
challenges
I
in
mean,
each
Minecraft
little
is the
area,
best-selling
after you
game
get
of all
one
time.
cat shine,
Steve is an
normally
icon, more
you
so
have
than
to leave the area and
pretty
come
much
back for
any
the
of the
next
other
cat
DLC
shine challenge to
characters.
appear.
Nintendo
After a
announced
while
that
of
the
having to
original
traverse
Fire
water,
Emblem for the
and there's
Famicom
a lot
was
of
being
water,
localized in
it can
English
become
for
a
the
little
first time
tedious.
ever.
But it's a
And
short
Fire Emblem
campaign,
Shadow
roughly 3
Dragon and the
hours, and the
Blade
final
of
boss,
It would release in December for
Christ,
$6.
riding
and be
Plessy
unavailable
chasing
on
after
March
Bowser
31st.
with the
Nintendo,
rock
what
music
is
blaring
your
in the
problem?
background, covering elements of
that's when their
Bowser's theme
fiscal
from
year
3D
ends.
World.
They
Alright,
get
what
more
the
money
hell is
this way
this? Is
by
it a
forcing
sequel,
everybody to
a
panic and
prequel,
buy
a
Fire
side
Emblem
story?
even if they
Because
don't want
this
it.
is
But again,
3D
this
World
is a
and not
digital
3D World
only
at the
game.
same
When
time.
it's gone,
But
it's
speaking of the
gone. They
music,
released the
my
physical
god, it may
collector's
even
edition,
top 3D
but it only
Worlds.
came with
There's
the
so
download
many
code,
just
which is
purely
stupid.
amazing
If I get the
tracks that
collector's
just
edition and
invoke a
don't
sense
download
of
the game
joy
before
or
April.
fear. They're
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Fire Emblem
The visuals
downloads.
also just look fantastic. They
At least
take
they
the
reduced
3D
the
World
price of
art
the
style
single
and make it
Joy-Con down by
actually
$10.
appealing. And
I
the
don't
game
even see
does that with
single
so
Joy-Con
many
in
of 3D
stores.
World's
I like
gimmicks. It
Nintendo
feels
reduced the
like
price
Plessy,
of a
the clear
Dodo
pipe, the
Bird.
propeller
They
box.
updated
They
3D
feel like
All-Stars
their
with more
purpose is
options for the
finally
camera
fulfilled in
controls.
Bowser's Fury.
They care
This
enough
is
about
a
a game that will
fantastic
refuse to
little
exist in a
treat.
few months.
Open
Then we
world
had a few
Mario game with
presentations,
basically 3D
one
World
Treehouse
stages
live
as
stream on
locations to
Pikmin 3
visit.
and Hyrule
It's a joy to
Warriors,
play
and
through.
one final
And you
direct
didn't even have to
mini
make it.
partner
3D World would have
showcase.
been
God
just
help us all.
fine on
Bravely
its own.
Default
But
2
what
gets
Bowser's
dated
Fury
for
does is
February.
turn a great port into a must-buy for everybody.
So
No matter what kind of Mario fan you are, there's something for you
like this
here.
during
Whether
directs
it's
and
the open sandbox style of games or the linear course clear type ones. 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is not only the definitive version of 3D World, it may just be the definitive Mario package. It stands toe-to-toe with something like Super Mario All-Stars being a go-to experience to just understand what the hell this is. And honestly, even though prior to Bowser's
Control
Fury's
is coming
release I
too?
felt this way,
Cloud version.
I think it made 3D World make a whole
No More
lot
Heroes 1 and 2
sense.
got ported to
3D
Switch,
World used to
dropping
be
this
a
exact
bit of a
day.
disappointment
Nintendo decided to release part-time UFO in a Hyrule Warriors demo
channel and
being a
eShop at the same
revolutionary
time.
3D
How are these from
Mario
the same
helping on
series?
saving a
They
struggling
really
system.
improved the
Now
barber
that we have
showcase as time
fundamentally
went
all
on.
styles
I
of
hope
mainline
Nintendo
Mario
realizes
covered
that if
with
you're gonna make an
2D,
8-minute-long direct,
3D, and the
make
style
sure
of
half of it
2D
isn't
and full
WWE
3D.
Battlegrounds.
It's
Well,
easier to
part-time
appreciate
UFO is a
this
cheap
game
little
for what
eShop
it
game
is.
made by Hal Levy.
Laboratory.
masterclass in
One of their latest eShop
It's
only
nothing that'll blow you away,
was
but
Box
it's
Boy
one
and
of the
Box
most
Girl, and I
fun
definitely
Mario
like
games
Part-Time
ever
UFO a
created,
whole
with
lot
little
more.
to no
This was
downtime.
originally a
Every
mobile game,
second
but
is
was
a
upgraded
joy.
for Switch,
While it
and
may
it
not have
works
the impact
really
of something
well
along the lines
here.
of
I know
Mario
I said mobile
Odyssey,
games coming to Switch is
wasn't
to
meant
me.
to.
Well, this
Not
was done by
everything needs to
Hal.
be
It
on
already
that level.
feels like a
And
Nintendo
considering
game.
everything
It
this
definitely
game's
takes
set out
more
to
away
do,
from the reveal.
I
Like
think
I
it's
already knew
exceeded
this was a
big
thing
time.
before.
I've had a lot
I'm
of
still happy
history
about
with this
it.
game.
You have a set of missions
While
to
I
complete as a
flip-flop between
UFO with a
loving it and
crane, so
being
you
more
want to stack
critical,
things
in
carefully
the
and
end,
meet expectations as well as
I
possible.
care about
It's
this
really
one
cute and
so
fun and
much.
addictive.
It may
and
not
I
be
wanna
my
see
favorite
more
Mario
Nintendo
game,
push eShop stuff
but
like
as the years
this,
went
even if
on,
it happened to be
I
an older game for
appreciate
phones.
it
No More Heroes 1 and 2
and
play pretty
more.
well on Switch. Does anybody
they
else
didn't
have
fix
this
the
weird
pop
feeling
in
with the
Strong
Joy-Con
Savannah.
being Wiimote substitutes where you
weren't
feel like you
this
have to shake them a
close.
lot harder to get some controls to work? Like the Wiimote would just register smaller movements as a shake. I think because the Joy-Con are more precise, when No More Heroes asks me to flip them up, I literally have to throw them in the air. Control Cloud version, one of 2 cloud editions of modern games announced in the same direct. This is what I fear a lot of games will be on Switch in the future. Just cloud versions because they don't want to go through the trouble of porting it natively to Switch. It runs fine, but like, it's not exciting, it's not ideal, I totally get it. Control and Hitman 3 probably wouldn't have made it to Switch otherwise. This way, at the very least, people who only have the Switch have an opportunity to play them if they're willing to always be connected to the internet. It's just one of those things where you can say controllers on Switch, but I'm gonna squint when you say that. I think most publishers understand the worth of porting their games to the platform. It results in more money, that way you can sell it to everybody, not just people with blazing fast internet, and in stores too. If this is the only way these certain games can come to Switch, fine, I just don't want to see it become too much of a trend. 2 months have passed, it's about time Age of Calamity released. Can I just say, what a great idea for a game. You already had Hyrule Warriors, which was a fun idea, taking the warrior style and applying it to a giant non-canon Zelda fanfest. Then you have Breath of the Wild, which detailed this giant battle for Hyrule between Link and friends and Calamity Ganon and friends that took place before the game. So, make a sequel to Hyrule Warriors about that! It's perfect! It's a little weird to have a non-canon spin-off get a sequel like this, but I'm not complaining. Age of Calamity is still a Warriors game at the end of the day, fighting off against hordes of enemies. There is some strategy to the combat, but you can still just button mash your way through. Even when you take the game seriously, using all the characters' moves and abilities, it can still be fairly repetitive. Like, you just kill all these enemies, go over here, kill all these enemies, go over here. However, unlike the original Hyrule Warriors, this one feels so much more like a Nintendo game. The last game, yeah, had Nintendo's input and approval. It's a Nintendo game, but it still felt like it was made by a third party, which it was. Age of Calamity feels like it was made by Nintendo. This looks just like Breath of the Wild. They nailed it. It's so much fun to see elements of Breath of the Wild be reworked to be movesets in a Warriors game. It's cool to see what once was a huge open world reconfigured to be this. However, while I think it is cool to see these environments in a different context, I do feel like the design was a bit held back by the conventions of Warriors games. Just the fact I can't jump over this small step and I'm this restricted going over here or there, it feels weird with this being an official prequel to Breath of the Wild. It's like that game revolutionized the open world genre, so here's a prequel that feels like a game I'd play on the Xbox 360 in terms of gameplay limitations. But I still had a lot of fun with this. It only got annoyingly repetitive to me near the end. They have you fight the same giant enemies like 3 times in a row, and there's this one moment where like 20 different powerful enemies were swarming me. I just about blew a gasket. My biggest problem with this game, though, is the story. I don't think it's a spoiler considering this is in the first 2 minutes, but time travel is involved, and right there that automatically devalues a lot of this game's worth. I got this because I wanted to see what Breath of the Wild said happened 100 years prior. Instead I get kind of that with some extra really tart sauce. Like, okay, time travel is involved, so this is a variant of what happened. Like, I already know what happened because I played Breath of the Wild, so that's a plus, I guess, considering I had no idea what's going to happen now, but I wanted to see what I knew happened in front of my eyes. I think Breath of the Wild fans should still give this a shot. It's still a Warriors game at the end of the day, so I don't think it'll make anybody run out and pick up Warriors Orochi 3 Hyper, but it's an awesome supplemental piece to Breath of the Wild, and I had a good time with it. I didn't buy Bakugan Champions of Vestroia, though. I'm sure even the developers are happy about that. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered. I like that EA is at least kind of supporting the Switch with decade-old driving games. Hey, these are still pretty fun, and it's given the platform some good racing experiences. Weirdly enough, this came out a week after the PS4 and Xbox One versions, even though it leaked on the eShop and was fully playable months beforehand, so it wasn't like it needed extra time. Family Feud. I love Family Feud games. I don't love this Family Feud game. You can't skip any of the cutscenes or dialogue. I don't need this much animation. Just give me the damn surveys. Why is it so hard for developers to make game show games? It should be pretty simple, but they keep f***ing them up. Kingdom Hearts Melody and Memory released at $60.
This is coming from somebody who bought Mario Kart Live.
Sakuna of Rice and Ruin was a bit of a sleeper hit. It always looked excellent, and those who played it seemed to really enjoy it. There was a supposed leak that Metroid Samus Returns was coming to Switch, as this promotional image for a Switch accessory showed a high-res screenshot from the game running on Switch. This was the last thing an intern ever saw. 3D All-Stars was updated again, this time adding support for the GameCube controller in Sunshine. Why do they care this much? This is amazing, but still, you barely do anything but barely do nothing at the same time. What were the priorities with this game? A sequel to The World Ends With You was finally announced. Neo The World Ends With You, not Neo. It was really strange to me how Square Enix kept hinting at a sequel to this game for years. Pretty much right after it released on the DS, they were talking about a sequel. And only 13 years later, it finally got announced. There was concern whether Doom Eternal on Switch was canceled or not. Oh my god, that's still not out. Yeah, people's pre-orders were getting axed, but it turned out that was merely due to the fact the physical version was being canceled, and Bethesda was simply going for a digital-only release. Well, everybody, let's band together and buy Doom Eternal on Switch to show Bethesda we want more high-quality Switch, but red button! Yes, the Nintendo Switch firmware was updated to include a new icon on the menu, the Nintendo Switch Online Hub. This is pointless, but kind of fun. Look, I get to see the release dates of all the NES and SNES games online, and it even tells me that Natsume Championship Wrestling released close to my birthday. This is at least evidence that Nintendo plans to do far more with Nintendo Switch Online in the future. I assume more pricing plans will become available, like a $30 a year one where you get more retro systems included like Nintendo 64. But in the meantime, this is just a really red wart. Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, the very first Fire Emblem for the Famicom, got an official localization for the first time ever. What else do you want me to say? You know, it seems like this release may have been planned for Wii U. I mean, look how nice and vibrant NES games look like on Switch's online service, and look at how stupid and dumb NES games look like on Wii U. Now look at Fire Emblem. Definitely a little closer to how NES games look on Wii U, if you ask me. And I'm pretty good at nailing what's a Wii U Virtual Console game and what's not.
This is all I have.
It's really cool this finally made its way over, and for only $6 at that. I really hope other games that were never localized finally make the jump. This was neat, but to be fair, the first Fire Emblem was remade on the DS, so we sort of got an equivalent before. Let's see some Fire Emblem games that never made it over here in any way, or completely different games. Please, God, completely different games. Immortals Phoenix Rising.
What's that?
It's always nice to see Ubisoft make something that's not totally driven by trends or just what will make them the most money. Immortals seemed like a passion project. Basically, the Ubisoft developers wanted to make their own Breath of the Wild. Well, they did. It's not as good, but it's a high-quality Breath of the Wild type game, if that's your thing. I really don't like the name, though. You could have just called it Immortals or Phoenix Rising. Putting them both together, I think most people have no clue what this game is. The original name, Gods and Monsters, I think was a much better title, but you just run into some copyright problems sometimes. At least they're talking to me. Doom Eternal released, digital only. It runs pretty good, but it's a bit too little too late. It doesn't even include the DLC. You'd think they would at least throw us a bone there for waiting so long. And yeah, it's impressive that Eternal runs well at all here, but I don't know, I think some of the magic of these current gen games running on Switch is sort of gone. I just end up asking, was this really worth it? Was it worth the wait? And honestly, no. I'm still happy it's here. It's just more like, yeah, I guess this is impressive, but I'm just not wowed anymore. Empire of Sin came out. It's about damn time. Everybody remembers this one, right? The game that Nintendo showed at E3 2019 and made everybody go, what was the significance of this game? Why was it a title Nintendo hyped up at E3 and in one of the Nintendo Direct mini partner showcases? Because I didn't see it then, and I sure as hell don't see it now. Collection of Saga. Again, why this border? This is so stupid looking. This really only appeals to those who grew up with these titles. They're old school Game Boy RPGs, and they're truly a slog to go through. Oh my god, it's the man brave enough to talk shit about Saga 2, Hi-Ho Densetsu.
That's right.
Double Dragon Neon, the Bit Trip series all came back on Christmas Day, which was nice. These are some of the most iconic WiiWare games, and Bit Trip Winter is super simple fun. I like it. But of course, we can't ignore Fitness Boxing 2, Rhythm and Exercise. Nintendo publishes these games for some reason, but they're pretty good. I really like Ring Fit Adventure, but it is a bit of a hassle to set everything up. In this game, you just use your Joy-Con and punch the air. Ring Fit's higher quality in nearly every way, but Fitness Boxing is cheaper and easier to jump into and play for just a bit. I don't really see much of a reason to buy this if you have the first, or buy the first if you have the second, though. You, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. It's so good. It's so good. This is one of my favorite puzzle games. I mean, you get two of the best ones together in one package and they're both firing at all cylinders. Like, this is a full-fledged Tetris game. This is a full-fledged Puyo Puyo one. Story mode is a treat, and there's this new RPG type mode where you have party members, and online is a blast, and I get my ass kicked by anybody who picks the fucking fish from Puyo Puyo. You can make the argument you don't need this game if you have the first. It's pretty much more of the same with very little improvements. But that's because there wasn't anything to improve, fucker. An Indie World presentation dropping Among Us on the Nintendo Switch that day, plus it showcased Super Meat Boy Forever, which also released in December. It's okay. I really like the original Super Meat Boy, but this was just supposed to be a mobile-only spin-off, and they decided to beef it up to be a console game. The level layouts are randomized, and it just doesn't work as well as the original. I can commend the idea, like, wow, infinite levels! But it's not as tightly laid out because of it, and after waiting a decade for a new Meat Boy game, this one just comes up short. At the Game Awards, it was announced that a new Smash Brothers character was to be revealed. My money was on Jeff Keighley, and it was Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII, more or less the same thing. I feel like they added him because, one, he's one of the most iconic villains in gaming, but also, two, it actually gave Final Fantasy VII representation in Smash Brothers. For some reason, Square Enix only allowed 2 songs to be included and no spirits, so to have actual content released alongside Seph, that makes me not pissed. Part of me would prefer they pick a different Square Enix character to just get more diverse series represented, but I'm alright with this. It's time. It finally happened. Hitman 3 Cloud version released. Yes! The more I think about it, the less these Cloud versions make sense, so it gives Switch owners the opportunity to play these games. But I'm sorry, if you were ever interested in playing Hitman 3 or Control, you probably have a PlayStation or Xbox. And you're gonna need high-speed internet to enjoy these games on Switch. And if you have high-speed internet, I doubt you only have a Nintendo Switch. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, finally came back. The notorious game lost to time due to being digital only on 360 and PS3 after getting delisted. A physical release was announced, it launched on Nintendo Switch, all is well. That was about it for games released in January. Nobody wanted to go face-to-face with Hitman 3. But we got a few demos, like for Blonde Wonderworld, a new game by Yuji Naka and Naoto Oshima, creators of Sonic the Hedgehog. It's a Square Enix game, but gives off massive Nights into Dreams and Billy Hatcher vibes. It's dog shit. At least the Nintendo Switch version, look at this. It's controlled with one button, even in the menus. They all do the same thing. It looks horrible. It doesn't play well. I'm happy they did a demo so people will save money not buying this, but from their perspective, why did they do one? Monster Hunter Rise got a demo as well, and Nintendo revealed a Mario edition of the Nintendo Switch. This looks really sleek, though it's literally just red. It's not much of a Mario edition, it's just a red Switch, red dock, red Joy-Con with a blue Joy-Con grip. Good color combinations, but if you wanted to make this specifically Mario themed, you could have added more to it. And finally, the Bowser's Fury portion of Mario 3D World on Switch was revealed. Oh my god. Finally, I can play Super Mario 3D World 8 years later. 3D World is back, and one of the best Wii U ports I think I've ever seen on Switch. It feels like they included and improved every little thing. Something as simple as the Luigi Brothers minigame is still here. The stamps are now fully colorized. The game saving after every level is now in the background rather than right in your face. They even ensured you could still tap and manipulate the environment like you could with the Wii U gamepad. Now you just have to hit the R button and move the cursor around. Every character's walking and running speed has been significantly increased, which makes the game feel legitimately fresh if you already played before. Online multiplayer. It could be better, but it could be worse. There's no multiplayer in the Captain Toad levels, which makes a lot more sense. It was always really weird in such a multiplayer-oriented game. They just said, F your friends, you've got Captain Toad. It runs at a higher resolution. It's on a console that just flat out makes sense for this game. I almost feel like 3D World makes more sense as a Switch game, and Mario Odyssey would have fit the Wii U as the exclusive 3D Mario more. Like, 3D World is all about multiplayer. Put it on the system that has 2 controllers right there. Coupled with the shorter levels, it makes just as much sense as a portable game as it does a console one. Then with Mario Odyssey, I feel like with the map screen you could bring up and a lot of the enemies you could capture, that just feels prime for the Wii U gamepad. At the end of the day though, at least both are now on Switch, and 3D World is better than it's ever been. Back on the Wii U, I felt it was a good game, albeit underwhelming as the only 3D Mario on the platform. Now that we have the big open 3D Mario on Switch, 3D World just makes a lot more sense now, and it's way easier to appreciate it for what it is, rather than what it isn't. But that's only half the story here. I think 3D World's Switch release would have been worth $60 alone. They made a ton of improvements to it to make it worth it in my opinion. Nonetheless, we have a bonus experience, Bowser's Fury. It takes the mechanics of 3D World, but puts it in a Mario Odyssey type environment. Fully controllable camera, wide open areas, you collect cat shines by completing objectives, just like the more open 3D Marios. It's almost like they took a bunch of 3D World type levels, you know, obstacle course type stuff, and spread them around this small open world, and it's just really cool. Every so often, Bowser's Fury is unleashed. Christ, he's pissed. You always have this fear that Bowser's gonna come out at any minute, and when he does, it makes things a lot more hectic. You either wait it out until he retreats, or you can collect a cat shine to scare him off, but if you collect enough shines, you awaken the Giga Bell.
I knew this sounded familiar.
Then you fight off Fury Bowser as my worst fucking nightmare. This is such a cool, new, and original take on 3D Mario. It combines pretty much everything 3D Mario's been in the past and crafts this lovely, smaller game out of it. It's only about 3 hours or so, but were you really expecting much more? 3D World is the main attraction, though Bowser's Fury is the more interesting to discuss as it gets your mind racing. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is an incredible deal. I wholly recommend it. I'd recommend it without Bowser's Fury. With? This game needs to be available to all. Nintendo also published Bravely Default 2. Moving on. I just don't care. I played the demo, it didn't grab me. But people seem to be liking it, and that's all that matters. Whenever a game like this comes out, I am happy because that means Nintendo will move on to talking about other things. Damn!
Damn it!
Before we get to that, Persona 5 finally released on Nintendo Switch. You can tell by the inclusion of the word Strikers. Persona 5 Strikers is a sequel to Persona 5 that is not a turn-based RPG, rather a warrior-style action RPG. So only 3 months after Hyrule Warriors, we have another game similar to it, though Persona 5 Strikers does deviate quite a bit from the Warriors formula. Combat's similar, but this feels more like a Persona game than something like Age of Calamity feels like a Zelda one. It's a solid title, though I do find it odd how Atlus thinks that people don't want their core RPGs on Switch. If there's an exclusivity contract between them and Sony, sure, I get it, but it seems less and less likely there is. For some reason, they think regular Persona 5 wouldn't do well on Switch, but its sequel that's a hack-and-slash RPG, oh yeah, that'll do well. You can think that way, doesn't mean I get it. Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection is a solid return for the Ghosts and Goblins series. I think the art style looks nice, so the animation is a little too Adobe Flashy for me. Like, you just see a lot of animation tweens and unnatural-looking movements, but I think the actual art looks quite good for the series. And if you want to see where Ghosts and Goblins started, look in your backyard. Capcom spits a series on everything they can, including the Capcom Arcade Stadium. These kind of compilations don't really excite me anymore, as Capcom has done a ton of stuff like this in the past. Not only that, but many of the top games in here are available elsewhere on Nintendo Switch, like the Street Fighter Anniversary Collection and Capcom Beat 'em Up Bundle. They do this thing where the game download is free, but then you have to pay for pretty much all the games via an in-game purchase, which is fine. That works for mobile phones. I feel like people would rather have the game just flat out say its price on an actual game platform like this. SNES and NES Online got updated this month. Nintendo, where do you get off? Every now and then we get a good month with some solid titles, but now that these apps are updated like every quarter of the year, we wait and get garbage. I personally feel like Nintendo Switch Online has proven its worth. For 20 bones a year, we get more than enough NES and SNES games, but if they want us to maintain excitement for this service, adding the title screen of Fire and Ice to NES Online alongside the rest of the game's box arts isn't gonna cut it. I'd be down for just flat out original Game Boy games at this point. I think everybody's yearning for Nintendo 64, and I agree. But overall, I just want to see more legacy Nintendo content come over faster than this and for an affordable price.
Damn it!
Well, it's time. After nearly a year and a half, we got our first full Nintendo Direct on February 17th. You know, I always see people freak out at others for being disappointed in or critical of Nintendo. The same people who scolded others for giving Nintendo a hard time for not doing a full Nintendo Direct since September by saying, "What even is a full Direct? You got a Direct Mini, be thankful," were the same people who were overreacting and foaming at the mouth saying, "Yes, a full Nintendo Direct! Nintendo, my fate!" I just get kind of annoyed seeing people freak out about Nintendo announcements, acting like this is the greatest pleasure. This is the best sex I've ever had, and all I did was watch a Splatoon trailer. Anybody criticizing them is just being nitpicky and how they shouldn't go in having such high expectations. Well, then maybe don't hype up Nintendo announcements like they're the 15th coming of Christ. Now, with that being said,
Chibi Robo 6 is coming!
it was good to have these back. Just that feeling of excitement. We were all watching the announcements at the same time rather than waking up at 1 p.m. to Pikmin 3. It was time to be excited for a Nintendo Direct again. So, what did I think? I bought this. You know my opinion doesn't matter. This Direct was alright. No matter what, I don't think Nintendo was going to live up to a year and a half worth of build-up, but I think it was okay, though it had a lot of elements of Nintendo Directs I really don't like. The first announcement was of Pyra and Mithra from Xenoblade Chronicles coming to Smash Brothers. You could have said this was Tweedledee and Bernie from Xenoblade 2, and I would believe you. I don't care. This is fine. I mean, were we really not expecting Xenoblade 2 characters here? If they decided to include the characters from Fire Emblem Warriors, that's when I think everybody should have drawn the line. The Xenoblade franchise only had Shulk as a fighter in Smash Brothers. Second, or technically third, these characters transform into each other like Sheik and Zelda. That's fine to me. Of course, the typical anime style has been crowding up a lot of the Smash Brothers DLC slots, so it's totally fair to be like, alright, I don't want pointy hair Keyman, I want the Raisin Bran son, damn it. However, Pyra and Mithra's inclusion doesn't annoy me that much, considering Xenoblade only had one rep prior. If they already had like 5 or 6 characters, and this was the 7th, that's when I'll be like, alright, stop. Fall Guys is coming to Switch. That was a really popular game over the summer, and then a lot of people stopped talking about it, so it's a good thing it's coming to the Switch in 4 months. The Famicom detective games are coming over, which is pretty cool. These are remakes of these old Famicom visual novels by Nintendo back in the day. I love how companies have just given up trying to localize things for English instead of calling this the Super Sleuth Detective Club or something. And Nintendo of America just said, "F We're just calling it Famicom Detective Club. This is such a neat, obscure part of Nintendo's history that's being fully localized for the first time, and I'm all for it. A Monster Hunter Rise system and Pro Controller and Mario Golf Super Rush. I've been waiting for a game with that subtitle forever. So this looks lovely. It's about time something other than Mario Tennis happened. No More Heroes 3 looks promising, but really low resolution. No idea what's going on here. DC Superhero Girls Teen Power, published by Nintendo. It's fine Nintendo's publishing this, just why is it in a direct? Nintendo made it clear that games like Ring Fit Adventure, Nintendo Labo, their mobile titles, those don't belong in traditional Nintendo Directs because they were for a different audience. So why is this here? Miitopia from the 3DS is coming over, sure. That game was fine, it's just like, why? They're putting loads of effort into this too. Like, it looks excellent now. I think it's awesome to see Nintendo still cares about Miis. It kind of felt like if they didn't have to include Miis in a game on Switch, they wouldn't. Like, they were distancing themselves from the brand, but I think Miitopia is a good sign of things to come. Miis are great. They're way better than the stick figures in Clubhouse games. Project Triangle Strategy, right when I thought we were out of the woods. A successor to Octopath Traveler in graphical design only, really. This one is a strategy RPG instead of a turn-based one. Same sentiment I had towards Bravely Default 2 in that Nintendo Direct Mini. Looks good, but do you really need to have a full 5-minute trailer for this? Anybody who's interested is going to know they're interested within the first minute of this trailer. Nobody's gonna perk their ears up 4 minutes in. Knockout City, not a bad looking game. Basically an online multiplayer dodgeball game. What killed it in this Direct was the trailer. Nintendo, stop playing full trailers for games. Just have your narrator explain it and move on after a minute. Instead, games like Plants vs. Zombies, Battle for Neighborville, Star Wars Hunters, Knockout City, DC Superhero Girls Team Power, Project Triangle Strategy, they all have these full-blown trailers shown, and it's kind of sort of annoying. It doesn't help that their presentation style is kind of weird sometimes. Age of Calamity DLC. Here's a 2-second still frame of everything it comes with, and then moving on. What? Ninja Gaiden Master Collection. Great to see that. Included is Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, so that marks one more Wii U game off the list. Devil's Third, your day will come. Eiji Aonuma appears and says that Breath of the Wild 2 info will come later this year, and to me, this says that game is coming in 2022. If it does, it's pretty crazy we've waited about as long as we did for the first Breath of the Wild. That game got its first trailer at E3 2014 and came out a little under 3 years later. Well, Breath of the Wild 2 was first revealed at E3 2019, and we'll probably get it a little under 3 years later. That's fine, but I think it means my expectations are a lot higher here. Breath of the Wild 1, they had to create this entire thing from scratch. 2 is obviously using a lot of 1 as a base, and it's taking just as long to produce. You'd think it would come out quicker, but I'm kind of expecting to be blown away here. In the meantime, we have Skyward Sword HD to hold us over. Yes, Skyward Sword is being remastered for Nintendo Switch. Good for it. It looks clearer now, but very little else looks much better. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess's HD versions felt a lot more dramatically different and improved. I think I've overestimated how much better Wind Waker HD looked in the past. Playing the original, it's obvious they did very little outside of bloom the out of the game, though it still looks great. Twilight Princess, they did a ton more to the game, but it inherently looks worse because its art style doesn't age as well as Wind Waker's. Skyward Sword being a colorful late Wii game, it does age much better, so there really wasn't a ton they could have done to it, so it's whatever. It just doesn't look dramatically better. It's similar to how Mario Galaxy and 3D All-Stars looked. Comparing it to the original, of course it looks a lot better. It's so much more clear, but if you're just seeing footage of the new version by itself, it's not immediately obvious you're playing the upgrade. They retooled the game to work via standard button control, which is good to preserve this game and make it more readily accessible. The Skyward Sword's emphasis on motion controls definitely didn't sit well with some, so having the option no matter what is a good thing. But the thing is, this game is $60, and that's just a bit ridiculous. Sure, Nintendo knows they can sell the game at that price because we're all stupid and hate savings, but it's just weird they value this game at the exact same price as Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild 2 when that releases, and a remake like Link's Awakening that also shouldn't have been $60, but had a lot more apparent effort put in. And something like Mario 3D All-Stars, where as low effort as that game was, it was 3 games in one, with one of them being a Wii game as well, with similar levels of changes made. Of course, this being at face value. Skyward Sword HD will probably have more quality of life enhancements, but even with those, this should be $40 max. It's more expensive than it was on Wii at launch 10 years ago, when it was a brand new game. It sounds like I'm really not digging any of this, but I'm not mad. It's just kind of lame to see Nintendo take advantage of the fact they're at the top right now. Instead of pricing things fairly, they think because Zelda's hot right now, they can price a game like this at $60. And they'd be right. It's a weird situation to be in because the same people complaining about this are the same ones who are gonna buy the game. I think it just stings because I love Nintendo. I want to buy their games, and just because they know that, they're gonna take advantage of it. It's kinda lame. The final announcement was Splatoon 3. Okay, Splatoon is great, but it feels odd to have more than one entry per system. To me, it feels somewhat redundant to have 2 Splatoons on the Switch, with both being Well, Splatoon. 3 seems to be taking things in a post-apocalyptic direction, which seems cool, but at its core, it looks like more Splatoon, which is fine. It's just I'm not crazy excited considering I can already play Splatoon on the Switch right now. Of course, I just said how Mario Kart needs a new entry, but that's because Splatoon 2 was a new game. It had a whole single-player expansion. I don't really think the Switch was desperate for more Splatoon. Mario Kart 8 came out in 2014, and we've been nursing on those tracks ever since. Cool announcement, but with Splatoon 2 readily available, it's hard for me to get that pumped up. At least the single-player seems to be more open adventure style, with Splatoon feeling the need to make their world feel as lived in as possible. It was always odd to me the single-player stages were simple obstacle course designs. I felt like an exploration-styled story mode would work well for the series, and we might just get that with 3. That was alright. At least we had a Pokemon Presents later on, showcasing remakes of Diamond and Pearl, Brilliant Diamond, and Shining Pearl. They look very simple and aren't developed by Game Freak, surprisingly. I wish they would have gotten Grezzo. They did the Link's Awakening remake and are working on Miitopia for the Switch. I just feel like while the style is cute, it could use some better detail and lighting effects, like with Link's Awakening. But while Game Freak isn't working on these remakes, they are working on Pokemon Legends Arceus, an open-world take on Pokemon. It's cool to see them try something legitimately new and interesting. It's terrifying to see this frame rate.
And that was the Nintendo Switch's 4th year. A lot of people seem to really hate the lineup this time around. Considering the circumstances, I personally thought it was alright. I think what's the most concerning is the near future. 2021's lineup looks pretty bad. It's pretty much entirely re-releases outside of Mario Golf. And the bigger games Nintendo's hyping up right now are sequels to games we already have on the Switch, which is great, but it does feel a little been there, done that compared to how these games felt when they first appeared on the Switch. I mean, we're officially in the 5-year mark of this system. That's crazy to think, but that's generally the expected lifetime of most platforms. It's not going to be the end of the Switch, but most consoles have a 5-year lifespan. If the Switch is going to continue past that mark, I think a small revision at the very least is needed. I want to be excited by the Switch again, but at the moment, the hardware is just starting to show its age, and it's not as magical as it once was in 2017 and 2018. And plus, Nintendo's getting a bit too egotistical. They've always done whatever they felt like doing, but at least during the Wii U era and the beginning of this one, they felt a lot more humble. Now they'll charge $60 for anything with a leg on the cover. Just some concerns for the future, but Nintendo is still working harder than a lot of other game companies. They put out more games than both of their competitors, even at their worst. At their worst.